Welcome to the Heartland Journal's Tennessee podcast with your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to my show. I am Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around and around and around and around. We only grow with your help, and we are growing really fast, so great. Thanks for doing it. On this show, we are focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with a very special guest, John E. Bozeman, Johnny B on X. Last month, on August 21st, 2025, marked 4 years since Super Talk 99.7 WTN host Phil Valentine died after a bout with COVID-19. Longtime partner Johnny B is here with us. After news anchor Ken Weaver said Valentine and co-host Johnny Bozeman were the best radio duo I have ever heard, the Supertalk host said it was Valentine that made the pairing work so well together. You could have put anybody with Phil Valentine and he would have made it a winner, Bozeman said. I miss him a lot. Actually, this morning I woke up to a picture of us out on right across from the Capitol for the big income tax fight, and that to me will always remain my biggest and best memory because he got mad. I've never seen people come together like that, and he was basically Paul Revere. Now Johnny B is co-host on Circling the Drain with Jay Harper and Jim McCarthy's podcast. Formerly on the Phil Valentine Show and Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis, we're talking to Johnny B at Bozeman World on X. WTN and Johnny parted ways December 17th, 2024, and Nashville radio has been devastated at the loss of their beloved radio personality. Let's see what he does with himself these days and what he thinks of the radio business now and in the future. How you doing, man? I'm so happy you came in the studio with me today. How are you?
I am doing great, and it's great to meet you. And this is a great studio.
Thank you.
I mean, this is comfortable. It's like I'm sitting at home.
And it's not 5 a.m. You're like you're used to.
No, it's not. No, that's one thing. I'm kind of. I hated losing my job, but there was one thing I loved about it was I don't have to get up at that time anymore.
Yeah, but then you have the whole rest of your day to look forward to, right? No, that's right. Not really how it works.
No.
Are you a native Tennessean, John?
No, I'm not. I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas. I came from a family that was, they were kind of a radio/minstrel family. My mother and my father were in radio, but they also sang.
Wow.
So my oldest sister was born in Birmingham, Alabama. My middle sister was born in Shenandoah, Iowa. Huh. So my parents were on KOA there with the Everly brothers.
Oh, wow.
And that family, Phil Everly and Don Everly and their dad, Ike, and mom, Margaret. And then, of course, I was born in Wichita.
All right.
So, yeah.
The heartland down the line there. That's fantastic.
You're not kidding. You're not
kidding.
So
I didn't realize, so the roots of radio in your blood go really deep.
Yeah.
That's fantastic because that's what I want to talk about. Tennessee, which you ultimately landed here in Nashville, the radio tower is the one and only at the time that could broadcast over half the country.
That's true.
So tell us about the early days of radio in Nashville.
Well, the early days of radio in Nashville. Are you wanting to know like my early days in radio? When I got here, my father had bought Weno, which was a big radio station as far as it was up in Madison. And he turned it into WJRB. And I worked there for a long time and ended up actually moving to Birmingham, Alabama in 1982 to work at WRKK, which was a rock station. And it ended up going country. And that's where my first rating success was in Birmingham. A great radio town, by the way.
As a music DJ.
As a music DJ,
okay.
Yeah, on country radio. Yeah. Did middays. And then got homesick for Nashville and came back up here in 1984 and went to work at my father's station, KZ Country. A lot of people think that, well, your dad just, gave you a job. No, I had to wait. And I had to audition all over again. I mean, he didn't, in fact, when I first started working with him, he had me on from 9 in the evening until 6 in the morning. Yeah. So
did the sisters do it too? The whole family?
Both of them. My oldest sister worked at his radio station in Tulsa, Oklahoma, KTOW, which was owned by Dad and also Jim Halsey. And I think Hank Thompson and Roy Clark had they had a interest in the radio station.
Roy Clark's amazing. Okay, so your dad was a big deal. What was his name?
Max Sanders. He's not very well loved here because Dad was a good guy, but he was the kind of guy that you really had to watch your wallet around.
Okay.
Yeah, he could be kind of a shyster.
Okay.
I love him to death. God rest his soul, but yeah, he had some enemies here in Tennessee that didn't care for him.
Well, the music business, the radio business, it's not the Red Cross. Let's put it that way. You don't get to the top by being Mr. Nice Guy all the time. It'd be nice if we could. But.
Well, that's very true. Yeah. That's very true. And I got to say, too, my middle sister, Janet, actually worked in radio and then got into music business. She worked at Sony. She worked for the CMA.
Okay.
And then she became a publicist after that.
All here in Nashville.
Yeah, all here in Nashville.
Which is literally present at the creation because in the 80s, this wasn't what we get to see nowadays. There was no Broadway bars with, every hit artist's name on the front door, Eric Church and Jason Aldean. There wasn't even a Bridgestone Arena where all the big concerts are. So when you were walking around on a day-to-day basis, young man in Nashville, Tennessee, I know Hollywood wasn't paying attention to you, but what was the vibe like in Nashville?
Back in those days, Nashville was a lot of fun. It was a lot different. You could hang out in publishing companies like Cedarwood. Publishing used to be right across the street from the radio station when we were on Music Row. We moved from Madison to Music Row. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, I got to see Still Doing Time, the George Jones hit. I got to see that from creation.
Oh, wow.
Which was pretty cool. So, yeah, Nashville back in those days was a lot different. Now, downtown, you didn't want to walk downtown after a certain, because all that was down there were, criminals and hookers. That was about all that was down
or
there.
the line out the door at the Ryman when the windows weren't broken out, which was be all these people who were kind of looking around going like, I'm a little bit afraid of this downtown.
Well, they were. And the Ryman at that time was not in good shape. They had it open for tours, but it wasn't being used, which is a shame because anybody that goes to the Ryman, the acoustics there, I don't care what kind of music you play, the acoustics are perfect.
Yeah.
And it's such a great venue to play music.
It really is.
And I'm glad it's back.
I'm glad it's back too, yeah. And they obviously moved the Opry originally from there to where it is now.
Yes.
Over in Opryland, whole different situation. All they kept was the Circle, but the Ryman is back with its own, and I much prefer it, to be honest with you.
Oh, I do too. I'm with you.
And WSM. What does it stand for?
We Shield Millions.
We Shield Millions, which was a tagline for an insurance company.
Exactly.
Why did they, if without them, none of this would be happening that we're talking about, but what made them so important to Nashville and making the radio business really what it is today?
Well, I mean, they have such a history. I mean, it was actually an insurance company. And, that's what they were trying to sell was use the Opry to basically sell their insurance. But what they ended up doing, they had such a great, clear signal that, they're bringing all this entertainment in and it really captivated. It was a different time. I mean, this is when radio was magic, when they were just beaming to all of these homes and people were hearing all kinds of music on the Opry. I mean, it was all, pretty much country.
Everything from bluegrass to Loretta Lynn to Dolly Parton. I mean, the names that we know to this day and love. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't. Hank Williams.
Patsy Cline.
Yeah,
in fact, you talk about, that's what was neat about country music back in those days was that there was a lot of variety. And that was cool.
Which literally led to hee-haw.
Yeah, it did.
With Roy Clark and
yes, Buck
Minnie Pearl, like this whole,
yes.
Well, everything we think of when we close our eyes and think about country Western music, Nashville did only because WSM was willing to invest in it.
And, they're still around today. They're still kicking, and the Opry's still kicking.
It does.
So that says a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
We always bring guests there. So Josie Waffles on X. I love that one. I pulled it out of millions, but she said on 12/17/24, very memorable day, I'm sure, your last day on WTN.
Yes.
Johnny will be so missed. I hate to see this. He is an integral part of the show. He has brought so much joy to many of us and is a legend. Johnny A.B., how do you feel about being called a legend like Hank and Waylon? It's a big deal.
Well, I don't belong in that group, but I don't know. I have never thought of myself as being, a celebrity or anything like that. I'm Johnny, But people like that, they mean the world to me because, that touches my heart. When I've been called a legend, I always think of legends as people that have passed on. And I'm still here.
Living legend, yeah.
But I'm still here. But really, the WTN audience was one of the best I've ever experienced as in my almost 50 years of working in radio. They are probably the best audience that is out there for any kind of radio talent.
Yeah.
They felt like family. They felt like, in fact, they felt like, to me, I've always been asked, who are the most interesting people you've ever met? And people think I'm going to say an artist, which there have been some famous people I've met that are interesting. But the most interesting people I've met and the people that mean a lot to me are some of the listeners that have been out there. There was one that she was dying of cancer, and I was going through a rough time, and I had said something about it on social media, trying to say that you got to go through peaks and valleys, and she said something to me that I hold with me, and it's very private. But she was probably the bravest person and probably the most interesting person I have ever encountered in my life.
And the only reason you knew her and she knew of you is because of your show.
Exactly, because of the radio station. And it's people like that audience is very interesting. WTN, that's something I'll always carry with me, is that audience is the best, will always be the best. And two, I hope that people stick with WTN because the radio station has to change. Radio station can't stay the same. If it does, it will die.
Yeah.
And I'm part of the past. And I totally got why I was let go.
Okay.
Because it was time. It really was. And I'm enjoying my life now. I'm having the time of my life right now.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, definitely.
I started with print newspaper, and now we have this podcast, and there's a library. You can go to Rumble, YouTube, and I hope you all do. So it's there forever. But when you started in radio, you say something, it's gone. Now, somebody may have heard it in passing. They may have said, what did he say? You can't 15-second back and hear that again.
No.
So basically this isn't insulting in any way. I'm trying to make a point that the bulk of your conversations and your career and your time with Phil, let's say, you can't get that back. So nowadays, let's say I can go to the WTN channel and I can hear what Matt Murphy said yesterday, be my own program director.
Right.
Do you think that is, well, obviously you make a movie, it's there forever. You make a TV show, it can be seen in reruns. Do you think the quality of what you were saying to people like the gal you mentioned is going to be there or lost in a big clutter?
It's a good question. I understand why radio's having to go the route it is with cameras,
digital,
all of that. But and I don't know if this is really answering your question or not, but I think what really makes me sad is that I think radio is losing some of the magic it used to have because radio was theater of the mind. And
the spontaneity.
Yes.
Like vaudeville almost.
Yes. And if you listen to Phil's show, he was a master at theater of the mind. I mean, Friday Dancing in the Booth, Snowflake, some of the characters he had. Or that if you ever listen to the show, we always did anytime he talked about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, there, I would hit a flamenco guitar soundtrack. And by the way, that was spontaneous. That was not planned.
Okay.
So that turned out to be a really happy accident, and we used it a lot. But Phil will go into that voice like Antonio Banderas. And you couldn't pull that off with a camera on you.
That's true.
And especially the Dance in the Booth, because that is totally, you're picturing that person, you're picturing that somebody dancing on a pole.
Although with the hit that Hollywood is taking, you are seeing a lot more trained actors ending up in front of a camera doing podcasts. I have noticed this being in the business that all of a sudden, anyone with a microphone. There are literally 4.4 million. I'll talk about that in a second. So, but you and Phil Valentine were together at a long time.
Yeah, 20-something years. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, tell us about, Nashville radio in Phil and Johnny B era that became legendary, obviously.
Well, we actually started with WLAC FM, which was music radio. He was doing a morning show with Terry Hopkins, who, by the way, is one of the funniest people on the planet. And a side note, I was not happy with the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame for not mentioning Terry Hopkins, because that was a part of Phil's, that was part of Phil's radio history. And that show was very fun to work on. They were very polar opposites as far as what they believed, but they were a good team. But Phil left to go to talk radio, which was WTN, owned by a different company at that time, which was Gaylord. And then Phil eventually went to Philadelphia and had success up there. I stayed in music radio. And then WLAC FM got sold. And so that ended my music radio career. But I was actually going to go for another job in another area in North Carolina. And I got a call that Phil was returning to Nashville to do talk radio, and he wanted me. And to be honest, I didn't want to do it. I didn't like the way producers were treated. I saw how they were treated, and I thought that to me is kind of going down, not going up. Not progressing. But Phil said, no, it's going to be totally different. You're going to be part of the show. He said, don't take it like you're just going to be a board operator. You're far more. So we started out on WLAC in 1998. Phil came on the air the day of the great tornadoes. Nashville had a horrible tornado come through downtown.
Downtown, yeah.
Now, I wasn't on the show yet. I was starting Monday, but thank goodness, because I heard that was insanity.
Yeah.
But we stayed together for a long time, and it was, working with him really changed me, because I was voting Republican, but I couldn't really say I was, totally conservative. I still had some liberal leanings like I had when I was a kid. But a lot of things changed working with Phil, just watching how great his life was. I mean, he had a great wife. He had a great family. Phil was never down. I mean, Phil was an up. I always call him an upper, because he could walk into this room right now, have all of us in here just laughing, feeling like life is the greatest adventure in the world. And I hope that people, when they think of Phil Valentine, don't think of how he died, but rather how he lived. That guy lived life, in a better way than anyone I've ever met. I mean, he would take trips to Europe on his own. and his wife was nice enough to, she didn't like to travel. So she said, honey, go ahead, have your adventures. And, he'd come back just telling all kinds of stories, being in a cafe somewhere in Austria and on his birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just one of those charming, witty guys who lived life to the fullest.
And he always tried to help people out. He was nice to everybody. A lot of talk show hosts, and I've met a few, and I won't name names, but they're not nice people. I mean, they're all into their own ego. And
it comes across. You can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
You can
if you
tell who
spend
they
hours
are.
with them listening to their opinions. You kind of get pretty quickly like, I don't know if I want to have a beer with that guy.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
But Phil would be
the kind of guy you would, because I don't care who you were in the radio station, even if you disagreed with him politically. There was a guy that worked there that was writing a screenplay. And Phil said, Phil, would you mind looking at it? And he goes, sure, and he even helped the guy. And they talked North Carolina basketball, Tar Heel. Phil was a big Tar Heel. And he helped a lot of people. He helped Pamela Furr. He helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
So
He's
yeah,
one of those guys. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't think of any other. You knew him better than I did, but I couldn't think of any other career for him than to be like a leader of entertaining people on radio every day, 5 to 9 a.m.
Well, and he was honest. Everything that he said on there, he believed, and whether you agreed with him or not, it didn't matter. That's what he believed, and that's one reason I really loved working with a guy, because I knew I wasn't going to get any BS with Phil Valentine. I knew I was going to get straight shooter.
And were you alluding to the fact that he made you more Republican in ideology, or because of his staunch beliefs? Like you said in the beginning, you started saying something about you weren't that Republican, but you voted that way. But through connection with Phil, maybe you became more. I certainly know you guys fought the good fight against taxes.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't even call myself a Republican. I'm probably more
libertarian.
I'm probably more middle of the road, but I lean more right. And where Phil really changed me was with my faith.
Oh.
Because Phil walked in faith, but he didn't. A lot of guys talk a lot about it, but he didn't. He talked about it some, but he lived it. And that's why I know that this gentleman, when he passed, even though I was sad for all of us, I wasn't sad for him, because I know where he is.
Yeah.
His bags were packed.
That's the best we can hope for you.
Yeah, it was. It really is.
I saw, when I was doing some homework on you, I saw you wanted to clarify that you didn't get fired.
No, it wasn't a firing.
So was it just time to retire? You had enough?
No. I wasn't planning on retiring. I mean, I was enjoying working with Dan Mandis. I enjoyed working with Dan and Ken Weaver, both talented guys. In fact, all three of us became so tight. But Ken got really burned out on working, mornings, and his wife, wanted him. She had, I think, changed her schedule. So he wanted to work afternoons, and then Joan Jones came in.
Joan Jones, yeah.
And I didn't know how it would be with her, but man, we were having fun. It was we didn't miss a beat, so I was enjoying it. But the radio station wanted to make changes, because Phil's gone. They were having to bring in new talent. And I think they just felt like it was time. And it took me by surprise, but I wasn't mad about it. I wasn't hurt, anything of that nature. I understood what they were doing. Whether it's a good idea or not, I can't say.
Just so happens to be the 4-year anniversary of Phil passing. I mean, there wasn't anything about like contracts that expired or
No. They just said my position had been eliminated, basically. and
Ken Weaver, it's funny because, he's great. You know him personally. He's
awesome.
Yeah,
he's a great guy.
But 99% of the radio stations around the country use AI to do that job.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what's going to happen to radio. If I were working in radio right now, I'd be really thinking about podcasting or trying to do something else, because AI is eventually going to take over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to take over jockeying positions, news. As far as talk show hosts, no, I think those guys are going to be safe.
Yeah, all you got to do is type in news at 11 and, traffic jam on 65 and then have an Australian girl say it in AI, and Ken Weaver's out of a job too.
Yes. I mean, I think that's coming.
No offense to Ken, I'm not saying fire the guy, but that's what's happening in the other channels.
No, in fact, Ken Weaver and Joan Jones, I mean, WTN are very lucky to have both of them because they're both great news people. Yeah. And Joan Jones was you talk about a great talent and that girl she's phenomenal. So they're very lucky to have her. Very lucky to have Ken. Yeah, you'd love Joan. You ought to have her on.
I will, if she'll have me. Some of those,
she will.
Some of those folks. It's been a round and round, but we'll see.
I think she would. I think she would. She's not like some of those others.
You hear that, Chris Hand? You're supposed to be on here. You hear that, Pamela Furr? I'm not a grifter. And I said, how can you be a grifter? I don't get paid.
How does she call you a grifter?
It's another story for another day. Well, you can interview me one day.
Okay. We'll have you on.
I've heard folks start calling it Rhino Radio. I know Matt's a self-described libertarian, and Chris Hand, a passionate and outspoken conservative radio host from Massachusetts. I guess that can happen, I guess. I'm from California, so is Dan Mandis. Southern Cal as well. So Nashville Radio doesn't have any Nashvillians there. You were a Kentuckian. Think it matters. Kansas.
That's okay.
Sorry, Kentucky.
It's easy to get them mixed up.
All of a sudden, Riley Gaines popped into my head. But
that's a good thing.
Do you think it matters where these guys are from and how they get their opinions? And are they in tune with Middle Tennessee like you are?
I think they are. Dan. Dan's an interesting character because he's unlike anybody I've ever met.
No, well, he hasn't slept for 30 years.
No, he doesn't. I mean, I've never seen anybody. They'll work, the overnight show, do the morning show that he usually does, and sometimes he'll go do an afternoon show in Washington, D.C.
Or show up at the fair.
Yeah, or show up at the fair.
When he should be sleeping, It's crazy.
Yeah, he never sleeps.
The Energizer Bunny.
But no, I think Dan's in tune with Middle Tennessee. I think Matt has really ingrained himself into Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, from Georgia, and he was a radio guy in Birmingham, so he has the SEC roots.
Oh, definitely.
But it's interesting to me that
none
of them
hates
are
Alabama,
from here.
which I don't. The Crimson Tide.
That's just easy to do.
Well, I know.
Especially now, it's kick them while they're down.
Well, see, that's my team. So
I understand. War Eagle. I got a daughter there. But I find it interesting that nobody in Tennessee, with all you just described the entire layout of how ingrained Nashville is for being Nashville and one of a kind place, none of them are from here.
Right.
And you've got the politicians, of course, who some from Texas, some appointees from Governor Lee, who is from here, are from elsewhere. He had two from California, basically, that were in education. Tennessee, they always want to say, you got to keep Tennessee. You ain't.
Well, especially Nashville. Nashville's always been a transient town. I mean, very rarely do I meet a native Nashvillian or a native Tennessean.
Unicorns, especially because they're so rare.
Yeah, in Middle Tennessee, especially. I mean, Phil Valentine, which Tennessee loved, Phil wasn't from here. He was from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Which used to be Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah. So
1800s.
Yeah. So I think WTN still has, I just think there have been so many changes there and people are slow to change. People are afraid of change.
That's true.
And I think it's just going to take some time to get over that. Phil Valentine's not coming back, unfortunately. We've lost him. It was probably time for me to go because I'd been there so long.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about that. Same as we lost Rush. We lost somebody from my area. He was the Phil Valentine of the Pacific Northwest. Dory Monson. All at the same time. I mean, within at least the 2-3 year period. So conservative talk radio has really lost a lot of its legends. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, they have.
So do you think there is a future, or like I said, I've been hearing it called Rhino Radio. Do you think we're getting into some kind of wishy-washy or ditto head type of thing that Rush would call it?
In my estimation, no. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that. Once again, I think it's because people are People are slow to change. And I don't think the changes really mean that the outlook is different. Dan Mandis and Phil Valentine believed pretty much the same things. I mean, that's why I loved working with Dan, because it was like, not saying like it's working with Phil, but had the same kind of beliefs. I mean, you even look at WLAC. I mean, Michael Del Giorno, he's doing a great show. It's syndicated. But, Michael has been here for a long time.
Yeah. Well, that was the reason I asked that is that was the fear, because when these guys not only died off, but AM radio was big time under threat because of Sirius satellite.
Right.
They even said at one point they were going to take it out of cars because it just wasn't in demand anymore. But that is the talk radio bastion. If it wasn't for AM radio, we wouldn't have had Rush. We wouldn't have had anything.
Right.
So do you think that modern technology is leading, all roads lead to podcasts, or all roads lead to 99.7 because they're the only game in town? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is the future, or what is the future of conservative talk radio?
Well, it's a good question, because radio itself, I mean, to a lot of people, it appears radio is dying. It really is, because these radio companies are really they're struggling. That's just a given. And a lot of that had to do with deregulation, because they had to, they bought so many radio stations that they all went in debt, basically. But you're right, technology is changing. People's tastes are changing. I do believe that podcasting is probably going to become the big thing.
And you can do it for a couple bucks.
Yes, it's cheaper
to run a radio show. Thousands and thousands of dollars, including humans. We talked about.
Right.
So it's very difficult to pull that off when the technology has gotten so cheap. You can do it from a studio like this.
Exactly. So things are going to change. I don't know if radio will truly die, but I think there will always be a hunger for talk radio, because really, that when you think about it, that's where we're getting the honest to goodness news stories. You're not getting it from the mainstream media. They're spoon feeding you what they want you to believe.
And you'll hear the same lines spoken in every market. So it's not as important to people to sort of understand it's one message, not opinions that vary. Even Howard Stern, who was the pioneer of satellite radio, he's out of a job, right? So
he's changed too.
He personally, because he was the personality, which is like Rush dying. He changed from live to dead. But the point is that his AM platform is still here for now.
Yes.
The Sirius satellite radio, they said, was going to take over for terrestrial radio. Didn't.
No.
Clear Channel did. That's where all the computers come in. Where you have pretend weather girls and pretend news anchors.
Right.
So.
Well, the good thing about you bringing up Rush, I guess the guys that kind of took his place, Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, is that the
one in some markets? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Bongino for a while had some markets.
Right. But I listen to those guys, and I mean they are good, and he
lives right up the street from us.
Who's that guy?
Clay Travis.
Clay Travis, yes. He used to actually work in our building.
Yeah.
So
until he figured out he could do it from here.
Yeah, and make more money. Because that was the whole thing with Clay was kind of like, this is all I'm getting paid. But he's good. I mean, he's a talented guy, and there's a lot of good talent out there on talk radio, and I think there's still a good chance for talk radio to thrive.
Okay. Well, the point is they lost a good one. So what are you doing now with Circling the Drain with Johnny B, and how did you meet Jay Harper and Jim McCarthy, your co-hosts?
Well, Jim McCarthy reached out to me right after my job was eliminated, and I went on his podcast and did an interview. And if people ever want to see it, it's on my Facebook and on my Twitter. But Jim, after we were done, said, you really ought to think about doing a podcast. And Phil had talked to me about doing that. He said, you really ought to. He said, I can tell you're kind of burned out on politics, which I was.
Yeah. And that was early on in podcasting universe, because really the last 3 years has been the explosion.
So yeah, Phil was actually going to start a podcast network and
like Ramsey.
Yeah, and have a Pod Goats with his son Campbell. And so anyway, after talking to Jim, I contacted Campbell Valentine, and we talked about doing a podcast, and we had meetings, and we actually recorded one that included his mother, and we remembered Phil. But we couldn't get our schedules to kind of mesh up. Plus, Campbell is young, and he's trying to think of what he really wants to do with his life. As far as he may not stay in Tennessee, he may move. Who knows?
Right.
But we just couldn't get it together, so we both just kind of agreed we can't do this right now. And I kind of gave up on it. I thought, well, I'm not going to even think about it. And Jay Harper invited me out. Jay, you hear him sometimes on WTN. He fills in. He's also on WSM, does a show on there as far as DJing.
Mm-hmm.
But Jay's a great talent, but he invited me out to lunch. We knew each other, but we didn't really know each other. And so we went out to lunch, and the more I talked to Jay, this is an interesting character. He's worked in the music business, worked at MCA Records, just had a lot of stories that we were telling at lunch, and I thought, this is my guy.
There you go.
So I brought it up to him, and he was all for it. So got with Jim, and I told Jim, I said, we want you part of this because Jim's an interesting character. I love Jim McCarthy.
Yeah. And you got 2 episodes in. Don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
But there's another Circling the Drain.
Oh, there's a ton of them.
About the period before you stop getting your period. It's also called Circling the Drain. It's about menopause, 2 women, 3 seasons, about 70 episodes.
Great.
That's not you, right?
No, that's not us. But, I got the idea for Circling the Drain from actually from some nurses in Vanderbilt. I heard them talking about it. They said, so-and-so circling the drain. And finally I asked, because I had an ex-wife that was a nurse. I asked her, I said, what does circling the drain mean? And she said, that means somebody's getting ready to leave the planet. Mm. I said, well, that's interesting. And so I was trying to think of a name for it because everybody said, you got to come up with a name. So my wife was watching Scrubs, that television show. And I kept hearing them say they're circling the drain. And I thought, that's it.
That's it.
So that's what I'm with. But yeah, there's several other, Jay contacted me after we did our first ones, and he said, there's already a couple that are named that.
Their tagline is the pause before the pause. The pause before the menopause. I haven't listened to the show. I don't know what that means, but that's what they say. So you're 2 episodes in. Do you like podcasting better than radio?
Well, to be honest, I do.
The hours for sure.
Well, you don't have a, I guess you don't have that governor of a corporation hanging over you, telling you, advertisers. You can't do this, you can't do that.
I always dislike the, okay, we're going to pause real quick for this ad or this news at 11, weather and sports at the top of the hour. Like, we're just getting started.
Well, we'll probably have, we'll probably end up having advertisers.
Yeah.
Because you got to make a living. And I didn't make that much working in radio. So even though I'm semi-retired, I still need a little money.
Okay.
So
you're open for business.
Yeah. So we'll have advertisers, but it is cool right now with just having a free for all,
Yeah. You don't have to have those breaks. 2 episodes in. So for podcast, I've seen sources citing figures from about 3.3 million to over 4.5 million of us as of mid-2025, from Joe Rogan, who's consistently number 1, down to number 4,000,001, and now 2. Yeah. You and I, welcome.
Thank you.
Do you think the industry might be oversaturated?
Well, I think it already was. That's one reason I was kind of hesitant to do it, because I thought, my gosh, when you see the number of podcasts that come out on a weekly basis, I'm talking new.
Daily.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like...
There's only 24 hours in a day. You can't listen to all of them.
No. And so But as I told Jim, or I told Jay actually, because when Jay told me that there were others named Circling the Drain, I said, yes, but they're not us. We're unique.
Yeah.
So that's the way you got to look at it. And that's the way I think you've got to, in fact, I think you told me before we came on, don't worry about all the other. Just do your thing.
Do you?
That's what you've got
People
to do.
will tune in for you, not for the name of it. Yeah, for
exactly.
Sure.
And
That's
just
right.
trust in God.
Which is why a lot of these actors and actresses and Joe Rogans and name brand people, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, they could immediately jump right into it
right.
because they already had a following. They already had people who wanted to hear what they have to say. Whereas, Ben Shapiro had to build a following for Michael Knowles here in Tennessee, or even Jason Whitlock after leaving ESPN. He had to prove himself as a talker.
Right.
Well, he did, and he did a great job. He's got followers. But us newbies, yeah, we don't have that leg up, so we can't say, following Sean Hannity will be the Steve Abramowitz hour. You just don't get that.
Well, but even with Joe Rogan was at best a B actor. I mean, he was
Wrestler,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was on news radio and a wrestler.
He was first to market, I like to say.
Yeah.
He had a following. He was able to get interesting guests, and podcasting wasn't a thing. He got $100 million for it from Spotify. They're not going to give you and I that.
Exactly.
And same thing with Tucker. He gets fired, quote unquote, from Fox News, but everyone was tuning into it for him anyway. So there's like, well, you can go to any platform you want now. And he chose podcasting.
Well, that's the great thing now. In fact, if I were in a band or if I were a singer, today I wouldn't even worry about trying to get on a label. I would worry more about, I would use the internet.
Yeah.
To put myself out there.
John Rich just had a #1 hit with that TVA Devil song, and he doesn't have an agent. He doesn't have a manager.
Well, look at Oliver Anthony. I mean, that guy
discovered him, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how did he get discovered? On YouTube.
Right.
He was just some guy in North Carolina?
Just like the old days with the Grand Ole Opry, where all of a sudden a little girl from North Carolina, Dolly Parton, gets up there and sings, and boom, she's the hottest thing of all time. Richest entertainer ever besides Oprah, maybe.
Well, look at, what was that girl, the Hawktua girl? That didn't last long.
That was her fault, but yeah, she could have been big.
Yeah, she could have been, because I couldn't believe that. But that's the internet for you.
That was a pet rock. That was a bit of an internet sensation. But
well, you talk about 15 minutes of fame, she had it.
Yeah, yeah. But a Loretta Lynn as well. She gets on the Opry, she wears a white dress, and next thing you know, she's a legend. So the first episode, When Stars Die, episode 1. Did you hear one from the other guys that stuck with you? I mean, we could always talk about who was the legend that died that affected you? But what about the other two guys?
Well, it was very interesting because Jay brought up somebody that I didn't even think about. It was Marty Robbins. Marty Robbins, a lot of people today, country fans probably don't know who he is, but Marty Robbins was huge. And he was huge on the Opry, and he also, it was a very interesting thing with Marty Robbins. For those that don't know, he sang El Paso City. He kind of sang like that. But he was a great singer. He was also, he drove race cars. He was very into that. But he was known on the Opry for really making Ernest Tubb angry. Because Ernest Tubb had a midnight at his store, the Ernest Tubb store, like midnight at the Jamboree or something.
At the record store.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it would be every night after the Opry. Well, Marty Robbins always closed the Opry with El Paso. And the crowd would go crazy and want an encore. And so he'd keep coming out, and the Opry would run long to after midnight. And Ernest, you could tell, I even listened one night and heard it. I said, well, thank you very much for Marty for running over. And
messing with his business across the street.
So yeah, we talked to, and plus Muhammad Ali.
Oh,
once again, Jay brought that up, and Muhammad Ali was a big icon for our generation. Very interesting guy, and Jay actually had made a great. This is what I love about Jay. I'm learning so much about him. He was a great artist. He did this portrait of Muhammad Ali, looked just like him.
Wow.
And gave it to the champ. Had a great story about it. If you want to know more, look at Circling the Drain.
Episode 1.
Yeah, but not the menopause people.
No. You can tell by the gender if you're into that kind of thing.
That's right.
So I don't know what it is today, but in 2009, there were over 3,500 talk radio stations, according to Pew Research Center. In 2007, 257 news talk stations owned by the top 5 companies, 2,570 hours of conservative talk a day. Rush was obviously the big name in talk, but Phil Valentine was up there. Where do you see the talk industry going? Can 99.7 and Cumulus, who actually owns them, afford to keep going with that? Or are they going to have to be music?
If I were Cumulus, I would. If I were running Cumulus, I'd probably get rid of the music stations and
Get rid of the
keep
music.
talk stations.
Oh, there you go. It's cheaper.
Yeah, I'd keep the 2 talk stations. I'd keep the sports talk, and I'd keep I'd keep TN.
Okay.
Because
I didn't expect you to say that, but I'm glad you did.
well, no, I mean that's just me. I'm not saying they will, but I think if they were smart, they would, because people are not really listening to music stations anymore.
Yeah.
They're listening. They create their own station on their phone.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think unless you get to some good personality radio,
they also knocked it down to three tones. So
yes,
you're always going to hear the same song over and over again, no matter who the singer is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's another thing with country music. I can tell the difference in the women, but when it comes to the men, it's real hard for me to. Because used to, I would know, oh, that's Merle Haggard. Oh, that's Waylon Jennings. Oh, that's, John Conley.
And to my point earlier, that the reason you could tell the difference between a Waylon and a Merle is Merle was from California.
Right.
He had a whole different soul about him than, say, George Strait from Texas or from somebody from Eastern Tennessee even, which I still love the Eastern Tennessee guys, the Morgan Wallens and the, although I call him Nickelback of 2025. No offense. If you ever come on, it's a good thing. They made a lot of money. But
they'll throw a chair at you.
You might throw a chair if I'm walking on the sidewalk. Yeah, in the wrong place at the wrong time. But you're absolutely right. The music has gotten so synchronized that it's very difficult. But when you have an opinion on talk radio, that's fantastic. Even the New York Times said in just 2020, at least 15 million Americans every week tune into one of the top 15 talk radio programs. They are not monolithically conservative, but they are overwhelmingly so. A dozen of the top 15 shows feature conservatives or libertarian hosts with devoted followings like Rush Limbaugh's Ditto Heads or Michael Savage's Savage Nation. I know who Michael is. Not a lot of people do. And only one of them leans left back in 2020. Rush died in 2021, so that was the year before that report came out. How do you relate to Middle Tennessee conservative audience? Because Nashville is kind of turning blue.
Oh, Nashville's very blue. Not even just turning blue. It's been blue for a while.
Actually, it always has been blue.
Yeah, it always. Well, in Nashville and Memphis, always have been.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Really, what I found is that the whole time I worked in talk radio, it wasn't so much Nashville we were talking to, it was the bedroom communities.
That's why that tower is so tall.
Exactly. And that's why, when you go to Murfreesboro or you go to, Kingston Springs, Hendersonville, Mount Juliet, Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Franklin's getting got some blue in it now.
Oh, yeah. We got an election coming up. It's blue.
Oh, it very much so. It's changed. But I think it's always kind of been that way. I think you really have to talk to those people more, because Nashville is never going to cotton to what WTN or WLAC is putting out to them.
And that was my point, is that the politicians who frequent it, if you're going to hear from Andy Ogles, no offense, or Jack Johnson,
right,
you're not probably going to see them at the diner on Main. You're going to hear them on WTN.
Right.
They are not voting like red state conservative Republicans, in my opinion, which is, I think, why people are calling it Rhino Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a disconnect between what they're putting out over the airwaves in their middle of the road, let's say more libertarian leaning politics, on their conservative talk to those 15 million people, or are they in tune with them?
Well, that's a good question too, because if you're trying to go just to the far right audience or the right, people that are totally on the right, yeah, you're going to get sometimes the rhino
Point of view.
Yeah, well, you're going to get the rhino criticism.
Because
A lot of these-
Alabama does a pretty good job of it, catering to the far right.
Oh, yeah, they do. Alabama does very much so.
And Tennessee, not so much.
Tennessee is such a hodgepodge of different walks of life.
More of a melting pot than
Yeah, it really is.
Conservative Christian Alabaman. If
Yeah.
we're just going to compare those two.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and too, you have the music industry here. And I'm telling you, Music Row used to be far more conservative than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about the people that work.
Yeah.
on
John
Music
Rich
Row.
told us that there really aren't that many conservative country singers. They come across as it. I won't name names, but
Yeah.
they're not in real
Well,
life.
I'm not even talking so much the singers as I am the people that work at the labels.
The producers.
Yeah, the producers, the people that are in the offices that are pushing the records.
Right. We saw that with Jason Aldean when his
Well, yeah.
PR firm fired him for just saying his wife was hot, basically.
Well, and also they got a lot of heat over that song, Try That in a Small Town.
Yeah.
Great song.
And he released it himself. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Go independent and you do really well.
Well, yeah, and the song, everybody was saying the song was racist, and I didn't see anything racist about that song.
No, they tried to make it out to be. And he said, he used the Columbia Courthouse where I guess back in the day, of course, the courthouse is going to
that's a
He's like, that's where I get
reach.
my driver's license.
Well, I mean, if you go anywhere in the South, you're going to be in front of a building
Yeah.
that was probably a lot different than.
Well, I think the cultural point is that he bucked the trend of exactly what you're talking about. He was willing to let his longtime PR firm go out on the other side of the left and fire him, and it gave him independence to become like open, and no one's going to tell you what to say or do, and you're going to show yourself successful just like John Rich. Whereas the industry, they seem to be so darn cautious. They're right down the middle on everything, or else they know they're going to hear from the higher ups who are going to call them in and say, don't you ever do this. I don't know if it's true or not, but Tucker Carlson said he was fired because he said God too much. No, Glenn Beck said he was fired from Fox because he said God too much on air. They didn't like that. Okay, that's a rumor.
Yeah, we can't have God. We can't have God in.
But this is Tennessee, right? We're just talking about Alabama, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're programming correctly, playing that middle of the road game when they're already set aside as conservative talk and proven with 15 million listeners a day that is who they should stay true to.
Yeah.
But you think they are doing it or not?
I do for the most part. I'm not saying everybody on there because that wouldn't be fair, but I think as far as Dan Mandis goes, especially if you listen to Chris Hand, that guy, I mean, he's very far right.
Yeah.
He really is. I mean,
they moved him to earlier in the morning.
Yeah, he's and he does a great show too. Chris is a great talent.
Okay, that's good.
And he's very I've gone to his church, and the dude is there every Sunday, and
so he's walking the walk. He's the real deal.
He is. He's the real deal.
So we won't hold Massachusetts against him. We'll
no, I wouldn't. I would. No,
and by the way, the New York Times didn't say who that liberal was, but I looked it up. 2021 liberal show, and Stephanie Miller had one since 2004. So it must be her in terms of the ratings.
Well, I tell you, when I first started listening to talk radio was when Rush came on the scene. So I was told about him, and I listened to WLAC at that time, 1510, and that station, it wasn't all just conservative. I mean, when in the morning he had Phil Valentine, and he had a British girl, I can't remember her name, but she was liberal, he was conservative. They went at each other all the time. Then you had another girl that came on. And about 9 o'clock, she was liberal. And I listened to her religiously. I didn't agree with her, but she did a great show. Great show. And then Rush came on. So like I was listening from her show to Rush's show, basically, and also in the morning. And then you had Les Jameson, who was all over the place. I mean, the guy wasn't strictly conservative. He was kind of down the middle.
So, but you were getting variety and opposing point of views, not just one.
Yes.
If you turned into Rush, you're not getting opposing views. You're getting one. But
right.
Throughout the day, you're saying you're getting a good mix of what people are thinking.
Well, yeah, you got all, and I even had conservative friends tell me, they say, oh, I love that Debbie Ellis. She was the one that was on at 9 o'clock on WLAC. I really liked her show. I thought she was great. I didn't agree with nearly anything she said, but...
Right. But there are obviously people in Tennessee who do. We get that.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know, being in tune with the state at this time, that it was turning red even before the Republican takeover in 2014? Was it mostly Phil's effort? Steve Gill and Marcia, they like to take credit too, but it was Phil who won against the state income tax and kind of ushered that in. Do you think they could do that again if it was happening today?
Yeah, I think they still could. And I think the person that would probably do it more than anyone would be, and even though he's libertarian, Matt Murphy. Mm-hmm. I think Matt Murphy is entertaining enough, and you also need, the whole reason that tax thing was fought was thanks to Marsha Blackburn. She was very brave, and that's the whole reason it started. Phil wouldn't have gotten involved had it not been for Marcia and a couple of, in fact, it was all women that got involved. And
well, she might be the first governor female of the state. She was the first senator female of the state. So the woman's had quite the legendary legacy of politics in Tennessee.
Well, she did. And like I said, if it had not been for her, people give Phil all the credit. Phil was more of the Paul Revere. I mean, he did come up with, let's get out on Legislative Plaza and let's get people circling, the Capitol, honking horns and all that.
And he had a radio show.
Where
if they get rid of that and make it AI, you won't have that anymore.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, Marcia knew that Phil would be the right one to, because we got the call that they were trying to sneak it in. And that's where it all started.
Okay.
Marcia.
She rallied the troops. Jackson Baker at Memphis Flyer put it this way: in 2008, the state house joined the state senate in electing a Republican majority, and in 2010, a political off year on steroids, Democratic candidates were engulfed by a newly indigenous Tea Party wave, and in 2012, ironically the year of another Democratic victory nationwide, saw the Democratic Party in Tennessee pitilessly gerrymandered and authentically unpopular and afflicted by self-doubt virtually eliminated, a circumstance made worse by the Obama-Biden ticket's disinclination to campaign in Tennessee or to channel significant funds to the state party. Do you agree with that? And does that really mean you guys were in the right place at the right time for the exact demographic that you needed to have a Tennessee talk show?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'm not a real savvy political guy, but yeah, I think that I think what really hurt the Democrats, and I've always believed this, and not just in Tennessee, but what's killed the Democrat Party is that they cannot any longer talk about being, we're for the little guy. Because they're not.
They are the man now. Yeah.
They are they always have been. That's what really drew me away from the Democrat Party when I was younger, was that I'm thinking these people are not being honest. They are not being honest at all. In fact, they're choking the little guy. And you saw it with with Johnson. That's why you have the black community living in substandard housing all in one crime-ridden area was thanks to him. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
Detroit was the prototype.
Yes.
And so Memphis is exactly the same thing.
So I've always seen the Democrats as being just not on the level. That they try to pitch themselves as we're really out to help the little guy. When they don't, they step on the little guy, and they really don't care about the little guy. And in fact, it's not a little guy. It's working Americans.
The guys,
Yeah,
us. Yeah.
it's us. And
They can't take the populist mantle ever back.
and the Republicans need to watch themselves because I see them doing a little bit of that too.
Yeah, too much power.
And I voted for him. I like what some of the things Donald Trump's doing, but they've got to be careful because Donald Trump, and people get mad at me for saying this, but Donald Trump is not a conservative.
No.
He's championing some conservative values and conservative issues that we're concerned about. But you got to watch the guy. See, too many people are in love with him.
Well, MAGA became a projection.
Yes.
Everybody put all their conservative dreams on this thing called MAGA, and they forgot that Trump was a Democrat his whole life.
Well, yeah, he's just played both. He's a businessman. He plays both.
Yeah.
He plays both. I mean, whoever's going to help him out.
Yeah.
But I don't dislike. I'm not a Trump hater, but I'm also not a Trump lover. I hold him to task when I think he's wrong. And people get real upset with me. In fact, on WTN, there are people. He needs to be off the air. You know, he's not a Trump man. I'm thinking, I voted for the guy. He was the best choice we had. But I don't care who it is. I saw it with the Democrats with Obama. They loved him too much.
Yeah.
You can't love a politician.
False idols.
Yeah, you cannot do that. They work for you. You've got to remember that.
Yes, I wish they would remember that.
I do too.
You made a point. You said the Democratic Party is dead, but not exactly. Justin Pearson from Memphis, the place the new FBI director Kash Patel called murder capital.
Yes.
Justin Pearson from Oakland, California, and Vandy Divinity School calls the legislature racist. Heidi Campbell and Afton Ben, they call Tennessee's AOC. Do you think these progressive men and women, you could throw Gloria Johnson in there from Knox County.
Justin Jones.
She got beat bad by Marcia for Senate. Marcia says she wants Tennessee Republicanism to radiate outward to the other states. Do you think the Tennessee progressive leaders like Jeff Yarbrough think they have a chance of taking back the majority in Tennessee?
If the Republicans don't play it right, they could.
It wasn't that long ago that they were.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, people keep saying the Democrat Party. In fact, I think I've heard Michael Del Giorno say it on his show that he foresees the Democrat Party just going away. I don't. I think you should never count them out because, you know, they've been very wily in the past and they still are. And if the Republicans don't play it right, the Democrats could take advantage of that.
From your seat in the radio station, when people would call in, do you think leadership, McNally, Lee, Sexton, when you had people calling into the radio show, did they think they liked the way those guys handled themselves with Republican issues that voters cared about, or were they could you sense the rebellion was coming?
I sensed a rebellion, especially with Governor Lee. I think a lot of people felt, and me at times too, that he didn't live up to what he was projecting himself, what he was going to do.
Yeah. Well, the Tennessee 10 for 10, I think there's one, and it's the school choice vouchers, and everyone's mad about that because it was a waste of money.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I don't think people are totally happy with the Republican Party in Tennessee. It needs some help.
Okay. Do you like the Republican contingent we send to D.C.? Ogles, Burchett, Rose, who wants to be governor, Harshberger, all but one, Steve Cohen. What do you make of Tennessee Congress folks? Cohen from Memphis, which is hurting.
Cohen. What an interesting, what an interesting character he is.
You ever interviewed him?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if Phil ever had him on or not. I know they were, but I got to hand it to Steve Cohen. He did mention Phil's passing on the Senate floor, and it was very nice, actually. But out of all those people, Tim Burchett really, I like him because he's more of a statesman. He says he's not. He said he's a street fighter.
Yeah.
But he just comes off more as a statesman, and he doesn't seem real concerned with being reelected.
Yeah.
He wants to do the right thing.
And he owns donkeys, which is fun.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And he's from East Tennessee, which I've learned is a whole different universe than Middle and Western Tennessee. I mean, it really is.
Oh, it is. It's a whole different
That's
place.
like very Goldwater area, not Trump or even Reagan.
Well, the thing about Tim Burchett, he reminds me of John Kennedy from Louisiana.
Yeah.
They just speak their mind, and I love people like that. That's one thing I did like about Donald Trump somewhat is that I thought, he really is at least speaking. He's not allowing anyone to control him.
During the debates, he showed off that he could say it like none of the others would dare because they were soap advertisement tested, whereas he was probably tested too, but he said, I'm going to do this. And he really was following on the heels of 4 years earlier, Newt Gingrich, when he took on CNN directly and he got a bump in the polls. Trump's like, oh, if they want me to yell at media, I'll tell them fake news all day long, and he won presidency.
See, I wish Trump more so, though, he kind of wore the fake news thing out.
Yeah.
I kind of wish he would, answer the question first. Yeah. And then if you want to say, but I know you're not going to report it correctly because you're fake, that'd be cool.
It was a good shield as well.
Yeah.
As a sword.
But he would always start it out with, you're fake news, you're fake news.
Yeah.
That was okay at first, but then it got tiresome. It was like, just answer the question and then tell them that you think they're fake news.
That's right.
I have no problem with that.
When he was on The Apprentice or when he would go on TV shows like even Ellen DeGeneres, he could be a person and answer questions. But once he decided to be a politician, he had to, not make anyone mad or not make the majority mad. You can make 49% of the people mad, but not 51.
Right.
And I see our Attorney General, he wants to help overturn the gun rights. Tennessee Firearms Association fought so hard to win just this last week. Many conservatives are pretty pissed off about it, calling it a betrayal of republicanism for Second Amendment rights advocates. What do you think? Will we see more of this progressivism in a lame duck session from Lee, or do they going to get a wake-up call and say, oh, no, a lot of these guys are going to be here beyond Lee. They're up for re-election. We better move back to the right.
I hope it's the latter, because when it comes to guns rights, I'm very staunch about that. Too many these school shootings, they're horrible. Or the church shootings, but to me, it's not the gun. It's why people are not looking at the true culprit, which is prescription drugs. And I'm not saying that all prescription drugs are bad, but they all have side effects, and we don't know what it does to children because drugs affect everybody differently. It's like Phil Valentine. Ivermectin helped a lot of people, like Joe Rogan, with COVID. It didn't help Phil at all. Did not. And that taught me a lot. Drugs affect people differently. Why we're not looking at the effect of some of the, especially the psychiatric drugs that we are handing out to children for ADD, and for some that are wanting to change their sex at too young of an age. We really seriously have to look at that. Forget politics. Forget how you feel. Look at the common facts of it. The gun is not the problem. The problem is the person. We have a lot of mental illness in this country, and we need to really look at it honestly. And people are not. They're trying, especially on the left, they're trying to say that we need to take away guns. You do that, then we see what happens to countries that have their gun rights taken away. They have the rest of their rights taken away as well.
You're right. And guns don't kill people. I tell Heidi Campbell this all the time. Trigger fingers kill people. And if that trigger finger can't operate heavy equipment because they're on drugs, they shouldn't be handling a gun. So we got a problem. But interestingly enough, I just went after the AG a second ago about the Second Amendment rights. They did just say in Tennessee, it is a law that if a mass shooter has an autopsy, they now have to list the drugs. Which is all that's all I cared about 3 years ago when this thing even happened in the first place, and I got shut down and called all kinds of names for it. But I was right. Johnny B, thank you for your time. We're at the end here, so tell everyone where they can go to find out more about you, social media, and your podcast, as well as anything else you got coming up in the future.
Well, we've got Circling the Drain. We've got a lot of great guests coming on. It's not politics. It's about music, entertainment, radio.
The good stuff.
The good stuff. I just want to have fun at this point. This has been fun though, because I got to talk about politics. But you can check me out on Facebook at John E. Bozeman, Bozeman. You can also check me out on Twitter. It's Bozeman World. That's the handle. And then circlingthedrain.net. That's where you can find out all about our podcast with Jay Harper and, of course, Jim McCarthy as well. And those guys are superstars. I'm lucky to be working with them. I was lucky to come on a day with you, my brother.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll have to have you on again sometime. Quick break, everybody. I will be right back.
Sing a song about the heartland, the only place I feel at home. Sing about the way a good man works until the daylight's gone.
Thanks so much for coming back. It is that time to remind everybody to please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. That's how we grow and keep this content free for you. Over 1.5 million page views in the last 9 months. So let's keep it going, brothers. 2 million and sisters. Now the Heartland Journal news. Seizing the agentic AI advantage. A CEO playbook to solve the Gen AI paradox and unlock scalable impact with AI agents. I'll admit I had to look that word up. Agentic refers to someone or something capable of achieving outcomes independently, functioning like an agent, or possessing such ability, means, or power. I know that headline sounds super wonky, and it's from a McKinsey report, so I edited it down as best I could and have it still make sense. So here goes. Nearly 8 in 10 companies reporting using Gen AI, yet just as many report no significant bottom line impact. Think of it as the Gen AI paradox. At the heart of this paradox is an imbalance between horizontal, enterprise-wide, co-pilots and chatbots, which have scaled quickly but deliver diffuse, hard-to-measure gains, and more transformative vertical, function-specific use cases, about 90% of which remain stuck in pilot mode. All right, horizontal, horizon, vertical, straight up and down, whatever, about 90% of which remain stuck in pilot mode. Meaning, beta, it's brand new. AI agents offer a way to break out of the Gen AI paradox. That's because agents have the potential to automate complex business processes, combining autonomy, planning, memory, and integration to shift Gen AI from a reactive tool to a proactive, goal-driven virtual collaborator. That's why you have CIOs and COOs and CFOs, but there you go. This shift enables far more than efficiency. Agents supercharge operational agility and create new revenue opportunities, maybe. But unlocking the full potential of agentic AI requires more than plugging agents into existing workflows. It calls for reimagining those workflows from the ground up with agents at the core. Stick with me, folks. I got a point. A new AI architecture paradigm, the agentic AI mesh, is needed to govern the rapidly evolving organizational AI landscape and enable teams to blend custom-built and off-the-shelf agents while managing mounting technical debt and new classes of risk. But the bigger challenge won't be technical. It will be human, earning trust, driving adoption, and establishing the right governance to manage agent autonomy and prevent uncontrolled sprawl. To scale impact in the agentic era, organizations must reset their AI transformation approaches from scattered initiatives to strategic programs, from use cases to business processes. Remember, this is a McKinsey report. This is how they talk to each other. From siloed AI teams to cross-functional transformation squads, and from experimentation to industrialized, scalable delivery. Organizations will also need to set up the foundation to effectively operate in the agentic era. They will need to upskill the workforce, adapt the technology infrastructure, accelerate data production, and deploy agent-specific governance mechanisms. The moment has come to bring the Gen AI experimentation chapter to a close, a pivot only the CEO can make, a human. Remember, upskill the workforce. We're going to talk about that. Gen AI is everywhere except in company P&L. AI does not equal P&L, profit and loss. Even before the advent of Gen AI, artificial intelligence had already carved out a key place in the enterprise, powering advanced prediction, classification, and optimization capabilities. And the technology's estimated value potential was already immense, between 11 trillion and 18 trillion globally, mainly in the fields of marketing, powering capabilities such as personalized email targeting and customer segmentation. That makes sense. Sales, lead scoring, okay, and supply chain, inventory optimization, and demand forecasting. Yet AI was largely the domain of experts. As a result, adoption across the rank and file tended to be slow. From 2012 to 2022, for example, AI adoption remained relatively stagnant, with about 50% of companies deploying the technology in just one business function, according to McKinsey. Now we know why the rapid onset has been in the last 2 years. Gen AI has extended to reach of additional AI in 3 breakthrough areas: information synthesis, Google search, content generation, okay, they can make pictures, and communication in human language. There's a lot of languages out there, Tower of Babel style. McKinsey estimates that the technology has the potential to unlock 2.6 trillion to 4.4 trillion in additional value on top of the value potential of traditional analytic AI. 2.5 years after the launch of ChatGPT, Gen AI has reshaped how enterprises engage with AI. Its potentially transformative power lies not only in the new capabilities Gen AI introduces, but also in its ability to democratize access to advanced AI technologies across organizations. This democratization has led to widespread growth in awareness of experimentation with AI. According to McKinsey's most recent global survey on AI, more than 78% of companies are now using Gen AI in at least one business function, remember, up from 55% just a year ago. However, this enthusiasm has yet to translate into tangible economic results. More than 80% of companies still report no material contribution to earnings from their Gen AI initiatives. What's more, only 1% of enterprises we surveyed view their Gen AI strategies as mature. Call it the Gen AI paradox. For all the energy, investment, and potential surrounding the technology at scale, impact has yet to materialize for most organizations. Many organizations have deployed horizontal use cases such as enterprise-wide copilots and chatbots. Nearly 70% of Fortune 500 companies, for example, use Microsoft 365 Copilot. These tools are widely seen as levers to enhance individual productivity by helping employees save time on routine tasks and access and synthesize information more efficiently. But these improvements, while real, tend to be spread thinly across employees. As a result, they are not easily visible in terms of top or bottom line results. By contrast, vertical use cases, those embedded into specific business functions and processes, have seen limited scaling in most companies despite their higher potential for direct economic impact. Fewer than 10% of use cases deployed ever make it past the pilot stage, according to McKinsey research. Even when they have been fully deployed, these use cases typically have supported only isolated steps of a business process and operation in a reactive mode when prompted by a human rather than functioning proactively or autonomously. As a result, their impact on business performance also has been limited. The T2 killer machines are not ready for prime time. So this report is really long, a lot of charts. And do you know how good on a podcast is not really good to explain charts. So big finish here, the conclusion. Like any truly disruptive technology, AI agents have the power to reshuffle the deck. Done right, they offer laggards a leapfrog opportunity to rewrite their competitiveness. Done wrong, or not at all, they risk accelerating the decline of today's market leaders. This is a moment of strategic divergence. While the technology will continue to evolve, it is already mature enough to drive real transformative change across industries. But to realize the full promise of Gentic AI, CEOs must rethink their approach to AI transformation, not as a series of scattered pilots, but as focused end-to-end reinvention efforts. That means identifying a few business domains with the highest potential and pulling every lever. from reimagining workflows to redistributing tasks between humans and machines to rewrite the organization based on new operating models. Some leaders are already moving, not just by deploying fleets of agents, but by rewriting their organizations to harness their full disruptive potential. Moderna, for example, merged its HR and IT leadership, signaling that AI is not just a technical tool, but a workforce shaping force. This is a structural move toward a new kind of enterprise. Agentic AI is not an incremental step. It is the foundation of the next generation operating model. CEOs who act now won't just gain a performance edge. They will redefine how their organizations think, decide, and execute. The time for exploration is ending. The time for transformation is now. Okay, so McKinsey used Moderna at the end there as an example. So what's this? Moderna to lay off 10% of workforce in difficult but necessary step, July 31st, 2025. In a memo to employees, CEO Stephanie Bancel said the job cuts are needed to align the struggling vaccine makers' cost structure with the realities of our business, quote unquote. The company's global workforce, which totaled more than 5,800 people in 18 countries at the end of last year, will be cut to less than 5,000. And Forbes said August 8th, 2025, for you listening 100 years from now, AI-driven layoffs are shrinking the job market for recent grads. AI is becoming a major driver of workforce reductions, with over 10,000 job cuts in the US in 2025 directly linked to automation, according to new data. Entry-level roles are being hit hardest as companies look to automate tasks traditionally handled by junior staff. At the same time, the broader job market is slowing, with rising unemployment among recent graduates and young tech workers. And irony of ironies, if you can see it, over at consulting giant McKinsey, thousands of AI agents have been deployed throughout the company, often picking up tasks previously handled by junior workers. At AI's first, Duolingo CEO Luis von Ahn is using AI fluency to determine who is hired and promoted at the company. In the US, in the first 7 months of 2025 alone, generation AI adoption was directly linked to over 10,000 job cuts, according to new data from outplacement firm Challenger Gray and Christmas. Sorry, Mr. Gray. The firm now ranks AI among the top 5 causes of workforce reductions this year. You know what else is doing that? Disability from the vaccines, but that's another story for another day. In March, the unemployment rate for college-educated Americans ages 22 to 27 hit 5.8%, the highest level in 4 years, according to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. For some, the figure, which is well above the national average, served as confirmation that the AI jobs apocalypse is already upon us. Thank you, Fortune magazine, which I forgot even existed, to be honest with you. That's it for this episode. Thank you, Johnny B, for coming to my studio and letting us get to know you better. It's not often you get to meet a legend and hear their story about how they became a legend while working with a legend. This job is pretty cool. This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. Peace in our time, and definitely G2G, glory to God. Johnny, be good.
And so the emotion that I felt yesterday was because Johnny was and is so incredibly important to me as a person. And of course, as a teammate and a broadcaster. When I started this show, this particular show, when Johnny was my on-air partner, along with Ken Weaver, I was really nervous. And the reason I was nervous was because, number one, I hadn't hosted a morning show like this every day, ever. And so I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go. And we all know that I'm not the most confident broadcaster in the world. Johnny was always there. He was always there with a slap on the back and an attaboy and a you did great. Even when I knew that a segment sucked, there was Johnny with a positive word and kept me positive.
eye, Johnny. Don't you slip up or play the fool. Oh no, ma, oh no, da, I'll be your golden boy. I will obey every golden rule. Get told by the teacher not to daydream. Told by my mother, be good, 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 chicken, chicken. Gonna play football this year, John? No? Oh, you must be gonna play cricket this year then, are you, John? Nah, 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 nah. Well, you sure are a funny kid, Johnny. But I like you. So tell me, what kind of boy are you, John? Yeah, I've been dreaming of the wild, wild plains, walking where the pine trees dance.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.